Good evening. I'm Mark Smith, motivational speaker and author of The Process, as well as this Process Roundtable. Welcome to 2022. I hope you had a safe and wonderful holiday season. But right now, I got an early question I want to ask. Why don't we treat each day with zest and spirit, the same ones that we give and display with the holidays? That's something that we are going to really try to from time to time over this legacy changing action year of 2022. When I closed the season ending show a few weeks ago, we visited several of my acronyms that I felt were important, and also had some special friends from around the country share that with me. But there was one that we really didn't get a chance to go into, I will say, in deep detail with. Can't move forward without taking a pause tonight and set the stage of a year of messages that will change your life. Everyone watching at home or wherever you are, we ask that you please participate. And of course, we make comments. Make your comments, ask questions. We love that feedback. Without any further ado, let's start 2022 off the right way. And welcome back. Again, I'm really excited to start this series off. I'm going to really take a step back. I am truly excited to introduce my friend that's going to be joining me tonight. When I started putting this show together with something that I felt was going to be passionate, I wanted to have a message that was going to be clear, but I also was going to be concise and equal. And this friend was the first one that came to my mind. So I reached out to Terry and said, I've got something that's burning in my spirit, man, that I want to set the stage for the Process Roundtable in 2022. Would you help me? And before I even got it out, would you help me, out of my mouth, he closed his sentence and said, yes, I'm there. Please welcome Mr. Terry Tucker. Terry, good evening. How are you?
I'm great, Mark. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Man, I'm excited to have you here tonight. Why don't you do our listeners a favor? Tell everybody a little bit about who you are.
Sure. So you can't tell this from looking at me, but I am 6'8" tall. I grew up on the south side of Chicago with my two brothers. Played college basketball at the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina, despite having 3 knee surgeries. In terms of my professional career, when I got out of college, I worked in the corporate headquarters of Wendy's International, the hamburger chain. Then I became a hospital administrator. Then I made a major pivot in my life and became a police officer. And I worked undercover narcotics. I was a SWAT team hostage negotiator. Then I became a school security consultant. I coached girls high school basketball. Been a motivational speaker since about 2019. Wrote my first book and had it published last year. But pretty much for the last 10 years, I've considered myself a cancer warrior. And then I guess I'll round it out with my wife and I have been married for 28 years. We have one child, a daughter, who's a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy and is an officer in the new branch of the military, the Space Force.
Ah, beautiful, beautiful. A full life. Definitely a full life. We're going to jump right into it, Terry. I often talk about the process in pretty much everything that I write. And I know that the process means different things to different individuals based on what they view it or how they view it. Can you take a few moments and get us started and kind of tell us, what does the process mean to Terry Tucker and his daily walk?
Yeah, I think we're all on a process. We all should be. If we're not, we have some kind of a process that we're working towards, that we want to be part of. For me, it was always, I had a passion to be in law enforcement. And that has changed over the years with my cancer journey. And right now, my process is basically to be on shows with nice people like you and try to put as much goodness, as much positivity, as much love back into the world as I possibly can. And that's why I'm so excited to talk with you tonight.
And we're so happy that you're here. When I closed season 5 of the process, Procrastination and Thief of Time, there was an acronym that was featured around the word legacy. And I said that legacy was leaders exemplify greatness among choices over the years. And I had a lot of time to dialogue and talk with individuals about that word and about those words that are entangled inside those words. But before I actually talk about that word or those words themselves, I kind of want to dial back to something that you and I talked about with your coaching career. Um, I know that you played. There's an interesting story of passion and perseverance that I want to kind of set the stage with all of our listeners tonight as well. Can you kind of take a moment and talk about the journey that you're going through and have gone through, which I call the definition of a legacy?
Sure. So back in 2012, so it's been 10 years now, I was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer. I was a basketball coach at the time. I had a callus break open on the bottom of my foot. And initially, I didn't think much of it because being a coach, you're on your feet a lot. But when it didn't heal after a couple of weeks, I went and saw a podiatrist, a foot doctor friend of mine. And he took an x-ray and he said, Terry, I think you have a little cyst in there and I can cut it out. And he did. And he ended up then sending it off to pathology. And then 2 weeks later, I get a call from him. And as I said, he was a friend of mine. And the more difficulty he was having telling me what was going on, the more frightened I was becoming. Until finally, he just laid it out for me. He said, Terry, I've been a doctor for 25 years. I have never seen the form of cancer that you have. You have a rare form of melanoma that appears on the bottom of the feet or the palms of the hands. And because of the rarity of my cancer, he recommended that I go to MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston and be treated. And I did. And I had the wound excised on the bottom of my feet or on my foot. I had all the lymph nodes in my groin removed. And then when I healed, my oncologist put me on a weekly injection of a drug called interferon to help keep the disease from coming back. The side effects of interferon for me were that I had severe flu-like symptoms for 2 to 3 days every week after each injection. And I took those weekly injections for almost 5 years. So imagine having the flu every week for 5 years. And that was not a cure. That was just to try to keep the disease at bay to get other treatment modalities available. In 2017, I ended up having to stop the interferon, and the disease, the cancer came back almost immediately in the exact same spot. 2018, I had my left foot amputated. The disease worked its way up my leg into my shin, and I had 2 more surgeries in 2019. And then in 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, I found out that my entire lower leg was consumed with cancer to the point where an undiagnosed tumor grew large enough that it fractured my tibia, my shin bone. And my only recourse was to have my left leg amputated. And I also found out I have tumors in my lungs and I'm being treated for those now. And I know that doesn't sound like a very uplifting story. It sounds kind of dark and gloomy, but I'll be honest with you, cancer has made me a better person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. We often talk about giving up. And we talk about, we all have those days to where we think that we can't push further and we get stagnant, so to speak, because again, we have those feelings of anxiety, but more importantly, we have those feelings of sadness. Can you kind of walk us through, again, this is totally off script from a lot of things, because I want our listeners to really understand, to me, what a leader is. Can you kind of walk with us for a few moments to tell us about some of the days that you had that you just felt that, this is not for me? I don't want to do this anymore. Why am I still doing this? Why am I still fighting a fight that I don't want to fight? What kind of walk us through those scenarios that you and I had talked about before?
Yeah, there were several times. Certainly, starting with my interferon treatments. A disease like cancer tends to isolate people anyway. And when I was on the interferon, I mean, I was so sick, and I literally prayed. I asked God to just take me. Just I am done with this. Please just take me and get me out of this. I was so sick of being sick, and I have my family, my wife and my daughter, and there were times where my daughter was like, can you at least please come to the table and sit with us while we eat? I know you don't feel like eating, you're nauseous, but could you do that? And I tried the best I could. I would sit, and then I would get a whiff of, mashed potatoes, or I'd get a whiff of broccoli, and it was be like, no, I got to go. I got to go throw up, because that smell made my nausea kind of go to the next level. And so not only was I being isolated by the cancer from, my friends, but now the treatment was making me isolated from the people I loved and from my family. And back in 2020, when I had my leg amputated, after I healed, my oncologist wanted to put me on chemotherapy. And I kind of looked at him and I was like, is it going to save my life? And he was like, probably not. I said, well, I don't think I want to do that then if the outcome is going to be the same, but I'll go ahead and I'll go home and I'll talk to my family. And so, and this is kind of a funny story. I mean, it really happened this way, but when I look back on it, it really kind of makes me laugh. But I go home and I tell my wife and daughter, like, look, they want to do chemo. I don't think I want to do it. And my daughter is immediately like, wait a minute, no, we need a family meeting. I'm like, family meeting? There's 3 of us. It's not like we got a board here or anything like that. So we sit around the kitchen table and we talk about how we each feel about me having chemotherapy. And then my daughter's like, okay, let's take a vote. How many people want dad to have chemotherapy? And my wife and my daughter raised their hand. And I'm like, wait a minute, am I getting outvoted on something that I didn't want to do? And the answer to that question was yes. But I remembered back when I was in the police academy, and the defensive tactics instructor would have us bring a photograph of the people that we love the most to class. And as we were learning different techniques to defend ourselves, we were to look at that photograph, because he reasoned you will fight harder for the people you love than you will fight for yourself. And what I went through was a classic example that I ended up taking chemotherapy, even though I didn't want to, because my wife and my daughter wanted me to. And I love them more, quite frankly, than I love myself. So those are 2 examples. I hope those answered your question of basically being isolated, of doing things that you didn't really want to do, but you do them not for yourself. You do them for the people you love.
That's a powerful story, powerful message. And I wanted to set the stage for that because, again, that's what we're talking about. Leaders exemplify greatness among choices over the years. So again, break that down, Terry. If you were to take one of those words out of there, what would be the first one? Because we're going to talk about three different ones for you. But which one of those words jump out at you, and why?
The first one, I think leaders. I go back in my life, and I've been so fortunate to have played basketball. Started at 9 years old, and actually played up until I graduated from college at 21. But the first leaders that I had were my parents. As I mentioned, I'm the oldest of 3 boys, and I have another brother who's, I told you I was 6'8". I have another brother who's 6'7", who was a pitcher for the University of Notre Dame baseball team. And then I have another brother who's 6'6", who was drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers in the National Basketball Association. So our entire family was jocks. I mean, we were athletes, and but I always kind of laugh because our 5'8" mother, my dad was 6'5", by the way, but our 5'8" mother was always the boss, and it really didn't matter. And my parents showed us the value of family, the importance of family, because they were constantly, because we were always involved in different athletic events. Mom would be like, all right, Terry's got a game over here, so I'll go with him. And Larry's got to get a practice over here. So my dad would go with him. So there was always this divide and conquer kind of thing, kind of divide and conquer parenting is kind of what I called it with my mom and dad. And when I graduated from college, my dad was dying of cancer. And I remember I ended up living with my parents for 3.5 years as I helped my mom care for my grandmother and my father, who were both dying of different forms of cancer. And I remember one night, my youngest brother, who pitched for Notre Dame, he had a basketball game, a high school basketball game. And I hadn't exercised. I hadn't worked out in a couple days. And so I told my dad, I'm like, hey, I'm not going to the game. I'm gonna go work out after work. My dad was like, no, you're not. I'm like, what? What do you mean? No, I'm not. I'm an adult. I have my own job. I have, my dad's like, no, you don't understand. Your brother needs you. He needs you to be there to support him. And my dad was right. I was just being selfish, and I ended up going to the game because what my parents taught us was the importance of nurturing each other, caring about each other, loving each other, and supporting each other. So when I think of leaders, I think of my parents right out of the gate.
Mm-hmm. I concur. When I just thought about that, of course, leaders would be probably number one for me. But one of the things as we were just talking about it, I something came to my mind. I'm my forte is acronyms, right? So when I thought about the word leaders, I said, wait a minute, Mark, I might be onto something else after hearing what you said. And I wrote down, I said, leaders every day allow decisions everyone remembers in their soul. Learning every day allows decisions everyone remembers in their soul. So I've said a lot of times that, we have control over two things, what we give and what we accept. So as far as I'm concerned, great leaders in this world, some might say, but there's no buts in what we accept. It's so powerful to not look outside yourself and to look to others and look for others. We sometimes are caught. We live in a society that is, I like to say a lot of times, is selfish versus selfless. So we tend to kind of not want to say standoffish, but we kind of are at reserve or at a medium level when it's about helping others get to another level. And leaders always forget about themselves to make sure that others, to reach, that saying, to reach the greater good, to reach the mission, they always take that step back. And of course, you being a sports guy, we know that great leaders surround themselves with great people. That's what makes them true leaders. What would be another word inside there that jumps out at you?
I think the other word would be greatness. I was, as I said, and a lot of my stories are basketball related, or now that I have cancer, they're nursing related and things like that. And I think one of the greatest people who I never had the opportunity to meet was a man by the name of John Wooden, who was the basketball coach at UCLA during the 1970s, won a boatload of champions, won 7 national championships in a row. And I admired him so much because as much as he was noted for his success on the basketball court, he was also noted for what he called his pyramid of success. And I totally agree with you. And I think a lot of times we get caught up in our own success. We want to be successful, but I think a more important word than success is significance. Success is what we do. And I think Coach Wooden I've never found a better definition of success than Coach Wooden's, and I'll give it to you. And it was this: success is peace of mind, which is a direct result of self-satisfaction in knowing that you did the best to become the best that you're capable of becoming. We're not all born with the same gifts and talents, but we all have the ability to become the best person that we're capable of becoming. And I remember, here's this great basketball coach, and if you listen to his definition of success, it says nothing about winning. It talks about self-satisfaction and doing the best you can with the gifts and the talents that God has given you. And so, success is great, but success is what we do for ourselves. Significance is what we do for other people. And I've always believed from a very young age that our purpose in life is to serve. We're here to serve, whether it's to serve our God, whether it's to serve our fellow man, whether it's to serve ourselves in a limited capacity. But service is always, I think, something that's incredibly important. And I'll end with this. Coach Wooden, one day I was listening to an interview he was giving, and this reporter asked him, what do you think is the most important thing that any of your players should learn? And here I am, this young kid, and I got a notebook out and I'm taking notes and I'm ready for some great strategy or some good X's and O's. And Coach Wooden said the most important thing that we can all do in our lives is love. Mm-hmm. Love is the most important word in any language. It's the most important thing that we can do for ourselves. It's the most important thing we can do for other people. And I, as a young kid, I'm like, no, come on, coach, give me something good. Give me some X's and O's. But he was so right. Whether we love whatever our passion is in life, our why, our purpose, we have to love that. Whether we love ourselves to take care of our bodies and things like that, and whether we love other people. And I think it goes back to what we were talking about leadership a minute ago, how we love people, how we put ourselves down to lift other people up.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. One of the great things too that I've read and heard other individuals talk about, with Coach Wooden, is he's one of the only coaches that actually at the end of practice went in the closet, got the broom and swept his own gym floor. He swept his own gym floor. So I use the adage a lot of times, hungry but humble. Hungry but humble. So he is truly one of the epitome or one of the leaders of individuals who never forgot where he came from. Always remember that that there is something greater than what he is, and he is truly there to mentor men. He took boys and made them men. I would say the second one for me, Terry, would be probably choices. I remember something that I read when I was in high school, and a young guy posted up on the board inside the locker room. You're not supposed to write in the locker room, right? But he said, you can't understand my choices without understanding my reasons. And for so many years, it made me think, well, what does he mean? Because I've done speeches and I've talked about choices and choices. We're all defined by our choices. There's consequences for every action. So it took me many, many years to understand what he was truly saying. And what he's saying is that you can't define my walk until you walk in my shoes. My choices are not your choices because of the circumstances or situations that I am in. And I believe that a lot of times, sometimes are pigeonholed by that word, choices. They hear choices and it's a negative connotation. Well, if you make this decision, this is what's going to happen to you. But the true mechanism or the true fact is we all have the ability to and will make some sort of choices inside of our lives. But those choices are the ones that help make us grow. Those choices are the ones that are going to help put us to other levels. So I never believed that we falter or we fail. I believe that we actually have an opportunity through our choices to gain wisdom and knowledge that we need. I say, right? I'm not going to take that old stigma. As I get wiser, I understand the value of some of the decisions or the choices that I make. And that's why, I when I speak with individuals, younger individuals, even some individuals that are older, we actually break down what that truly means to them. If you can grab another word out of that scenario, what would that be?
I'm going to take the word you just used, which was choices. And I look at that from my perspective. When you heard my cancer journey, a lot of people would say, you know what, I and have said this to me many times, I could never do what you did. And I don't want to be a smart aleck, but a lot of times I am. It's like, yeah, you're right. You couldn't, because you've already decided in your own head that you can't do this. Why would you start something in the negative? Why would you do anything with the idea that I'm going to fail? We are going to fail, and failure is okay. Failure, in my mind, is a part of success, but we're all going to experience pain in our lives. And it doesn't have to be cancer pain like mine. It could be you flunk a test at school, or you break up with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, or you don't get the promotion at work that you think you deserve. Pain is inevitable. Suffering, on the other hand, suffering is optional. Suffering is about how you use that pain. Do you use it to make you a stronger and more determined individual, or do you wallow in it and feel sorry for yourself and want other people to feel sorry for you? That is totally a choice. And, a lot of times people get so overwhelmed. It's like, I want to be, I'll just use an example. I want to be better at sales. I want to be a better salesman. And they're like, that concept is so large and so big and so overwhelming that they can't deal with that. And what I try to do, or what I try to suggest to people, is that don't think of it as I've got to be better at sales. Think of it as I'm going to get 1% better every single day at whatever it is that you're trying to get better at. Or, I'm going to lose 1% of the weight that I want to lose today. I want to lose 30 pounds. Don't worry about the 30 pounds. Just get 1% better, or lose 1% of that weight that you want to do. And I remember a couple months ago, I finished a great book that I would certainly recommend to you and your audience, called Legacy. And it's about the New Zealand national rugby team, who by all intents and purposes is the most successful sports franchise in any sport in any country of all times. And one of the things that I kind of figured as I'm reading the book, when they bring somebody onto their team, somebody new, a new player, and I don't know anything about rugby, but I figure, you're going to hire for technical competency. I am really good at whatever it is I'm being recruited for in rugby. But that's not what they hire for. They hire for two things. Number one is character. What kind of person are you? Not what kind of player are you? What kind of person are you off the field? What do you do? I mean, do you grab a broom and clean up the locker room? Because that's what their captains do after every game. Their captains make the locker room better in terms of cleanliness than it was when they got it. So the first thing they hire for is character. And the second thing they hire for is humility. We always want to think that, hey, I've got all the answers. Well, I'm here to tell you, just for myself, I don't have all the answers. I don't. And that's okay, because the way they look at it as, you may not have the answers as an individual, but when we come together collectively, we'll figure out the answer.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. For me, I'm going to probably close this segment out with that session with nation was over the years. Over the years. I believe, strongly believe, and been passionate that everything that we're taught and everything that we go through is inevitable. It's already been pre-designed. It was already pre-planned. It's just for us to be prepared to deal with it. And part of dealing with it is accepting what it is. So over the years means that these things that are going to occur or have occurred or will occur, or there's nothing that we can do about them. But we have to be willing to make the best of that particular situation over the years and over the time that we're together. It's about leaving a legacy. It's about embracing. It's about changing lives. It's about taking a good look in your mirror and figuring out how are you going to effectively change the lives of others. Because again, you hit it right on the head. We are all truly called to serve. We're not here for ourselves, especially again, we understand that as we continue to grow. We truly understand that. So over the years, I have to be confident and comfortable to know that the seeds have already been planted. The soil was always great. There's plenty sufficient rain, and now I'm able to sprout over the years to give back to those individuals who truly are. I need to give back. So again, so much for that dialogue, man. I want to kind of switch gears to something that I always talk about, and that's change. And I know our habits sometimes correlate to the choices and changes that we make. But I know for me, change was definitely tough. I always say it's hard at first, messy in the middle, but rewarding in the end. But I also am I know personally from myself that most people don't change until the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change. Can you talk about with our audience what change you've gone through in terms of when change was hard at first, messy in the middle, but then it was so rewarding at the end?
Yeah, and this again is going to sound kind of um, weird, stupid. Like no, I'm not like that, and I wasn't like this either. I remember when back in 1993, and again another basketball story. Here we go. 1993, Jim Valvano was had been the coach of North Carolina State University, and Coach Valvano was dying of cancer, and he received the Arthur Ashe Award for Courage at the ESPY Awards, and he gave a speech, and he talked about how cancer was affecting him and things like that. And I looked at that speech in 1993 when I didn't have cancer, and I'm like, yeah, I don't get it. I don't quite understand it. And I had a nurse recently ask me, what was it like to have your foot amputated? What was it like then to have your leg amputated? And as I've told her, I said it's not been easy. I'm still learning to walk again, and my leg was amputated back in 2020. And I'm just, when you're a little kid and you're learning to walk, you kind of laugh, you fall over on your poopy diaper, and you have a good time. When you're 6'8", falling is not an option. You end up getting hurt at that point in time. But I remember telling her that cancer can take all my physical faculties, but cancer can't touch my mind, it can't touch my heart, and it can't touch my soul. And so this whole journey through cancer has been extremely difficult. It just seems like it's one thing after another. But, at this point in my life, and I know I am more than likely coming to the end of my life, I have these tumors in my lungs that I am a part of a clinical trial drug right now that has shown a little bit of success on those tumors. But I've been asked, why do you keep coming back for this treatment? I mean, it's not going to save your life. And one of the things I learned as an athlete, especially in team sports, is the importance of being part of something that's bigger than yourself.
Mhm.
And I think, you think about what the biggest team game that we all play is this game of life. And this drug may not save my life, but it may save somebody's life 5 years from now or 10 years from now after I'm dead, somebody that I'll never meet. And to me, that's part of being part of something bigger than yourself. And so this whole cancer journey, started out, oh my God, I can't believe it. And then it got messy in the end. And now I have a purpose. And that purpose is to hopefully help people, like I said, who I may never even meet, but hopefully that'll give my life a little bit more meaning down the road.
Mhm. Leaders exemplify greatness among choices over the years. Exactly. You know, when we first talked and I heard your story, it brought back memories of watching what my father went through. Because my father had lung cancer. He died relatively young, 62 years old. But I remember the last days, and I remember the time that he came in. He came in to visit me in October of 2003. He passed in November of 2003, and I vividly remember the good times, the laughing, the sharing of stories and things of that nature. And one of the things that I know that he exemplified and he talked about was some of his relationships, some of the relationships that he had the people who were coming to visit, coming to talk to him prior to him being diagnosed with cancer. And one of the things that he had told me was that, Mark, it's amazing the people that I really thought were, some of them that I really thought that were in my corner, my friends, they really showed out that they weren't my friends. And he said, one thing that I want you to always remember is that you are in the day, because you are at some point you are going to be sick of something is going to get a hold of your body. That's inevitable. It's inevitable. And like you talked about it, right? It's my choice if I suffer, but it's not, I can choose how I react to it. But he said one of the things that's probably going to be crushing to you is the network of individuals that you thought were truly there for you. So I want to take a moment and ask, was this something that you experienced along with your journey, whether friends or associates that were there all around Terry when before Terry was diagnosed with cancer? And have they dwindled away? Have you seen that network of individuals shrink?
I have. I certainly have. And I understand that, just the word cancer can, send a shiver up your spine depending on your experience. And you talked about the experience you had with your dad. A lot of people have that ugly negative experience. And I always try to. I'll never forget this. When I was had just had my first surgery, I had the bottom part of my foot cut out, and I had a biopsy done of some lymph nodes in my groin, and I did not have to stay overnight in the hospital. When I woke up and I was able to go home. And I'd been home about, I don't know, 20 minutes or so, and my cell phone rang, and it was my 95-year-old very good friend named Bud. And Bud had been in World War II. And he's like, Terry, I know you just got home. He said, but can I come over for like 5 minutes, just 5 minutes? I'm like, sure, Bud, come on over. And within 15 minutes or so, my 95-year-old friend was standing in our living room with a fully cooked chicken and a pan of cream cheese Danish that he had bought at Costco. And he said, here, you have dinner for tonight and you have breakfast for tomorrow. And I know that I have done this, Mark, you've probably done it too. When somebody's, going into the hospital, even if it's for something good, I'm going to have a baby or something like that. What do I always say? Hey, if you need anything, let me know. And what I've learned from that is that that's taking yourself, or at least in your mind, taking yourself off the hook. Well, hey, I asked him if he needed anything and he didn't say anything. So, I'm okay. I don't have to get involved. And the way I look at that is it's kind of like sitting on the sidelines and trying to convince yourself that you're playing in the game. Don't do that. The people that, that you're saying that to, the same things that you do at your house. The garbage has to go out. The kids have to get to school. The dog needs to be walked. The grass needs to be cut. Those are the same things that I need to have done at my house, but I don't have time to figure out how you can help me. And I look at that story with Bud and I'm like, yeah, you know what? Bud didn't ask. He didn't say, hey, do you like chicken or cream cheese Danish? I'm just going to get involved in your life and I'm going to help you in the best way that I can. And so, for all those people, and there are still people that can't deal with me. I mean, if I start talking about cancer or the subject of cancer gets brought up, they look at me and they like walk away. It's like, Terry, I can't deal with it. I can't think of you dying. And it's like, you know what? Everybody dies. Every one of us is going to die. And like you said, Mark, everyone is going to get sick and eventually we're going to terminate. And that's okay. That's the way God designed it. It happens every year. We see it, but here's the spring, everything gets blossomed. And then all of a sudden here's fall and winter and it's ugly. Well, that's our lives. That's how we live our lives. But, like I talked earlier, cancer isolates people. Cancer treatment isolates people. I don't need you, I don't need you to say a thing. Sometimes I just need you to sit with me. That's all. Just sit with me and let me run my mouth. You obviously over these last 45 minutes or so, you've heard me run my mouth a lot, but it's okay. I don't need you to do anything special. I don't need you to solve my problems. I don't need you to make it better, but I do need people around me. We are designed to be together. We are designed to, not to be isolated. And we need each other. And I need other people. And I have those people in my life, my family, my extended family. I have some very close friends. But that's a long-winded answer to your question that, yes, I had several people who I thought would be in my corner when this happened that weren't in my corner. Mm-hmm. And then some other people who I wasn't sure I was that close to kind of stepped up and actually got involved.
Mm-hmm. And I said it's a reflection, because we all are going to. We talked about we're all going to go through it at some point, sometime. It's not an if, it's a when, and we never know that time or that day or that hour when it's coming, but it is coming. Terry, I always talk about in my messages, I consistently talk about the importance of growth and the steps to remove stagnation. And sometimes I refer to it as unpacking your growth. What would you say the most significant steps that you've taken throughout the course of your life to remove stagnation and increase your growth, your personal growth?
I think the most important thing that I did was, when I was younger, and like I said, I started playing basketball, and I grew, and I was tall when I was young, and everything. My entire life was focused on basketball, and so in a lot of ways, my entire life was focused on me. That I'm good at basketball. I need to get better at basketball. Basketball, 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 and when I look at it again, that was me being selfish. And when I stopped being selfish and started caring about other people more than I cared about myself, I always talk about my time in law enforcement. And it's not a good time. Well, I guess it's never a good time, but especially right now, it's not a good time to be in law enforcement. And I look at the people that I worked with, and I looked at the motivation that I had. And I always ask people, if your job consisted of these three things: number one, you make less money than a plumber; number two, nobody wants you around; and number three, everybody lies to you. If that was your job every single day, how long would you do that job? And that's really what we do in law enforcement. I mean, we make less money than a plumber. Nobody wants us around. It's never good when the police show up, whether they're giving you a ticket for speeding or whether they're knocking on your door to tell you to call the hospital because your grandmother just died. Nobody wants the police around. And then number three, everybody lies to you because they want you to believe their story, so you take the other person to jail. If you do that, you have to do that job because you want to make a difference in the lives of other people, whether it's your community or whatever that ends up being. And that was my motivation. And that was the motivation of the people that I worked with. And, if you think about it, we need your support. I mean, I saw things that human beings should not have to see, that other human beings did to other human beings. So I guess what a long-winded answer to your question is, I got better when I stopped focusing on me, and I stopped being selfish, and I started focusing on how I could help other people be successful and or significant in their lives.
I always say, Terry, life is simplistic. It is so simplistic, but we convolute it. And the things about losing yourself, forgetting about who you are, and not being scared to lend a helping hand, not being scared to help somebody who might be in need or somebody who might not be in need. I always, from a time that I was a young kid, and this is how I got my wife, by the way. I when I would go to a grocery store, and I was elders carrying their groceries, or walk pushing the cart to their groceries, I would stop. It could be raining, it could be snowing, it could be 110 degrees outside. I would stop what I was doing going in and ask them, "May I help? May I help you with your packages?" That's just because, again, they always say that the wisdom of the world is at the glass slipper of an elder. So having an opportunity just to just get that small conversation, the ability to help them, is part of being selfless, man. A lot of people don't want to let go of the me aspect of things. And I know in workforce development, we teach these individuals, some of the men and women, that an employer wants to know what's in it for me when they're interviewing. But at the end of the day, no matter if you make less money than a plumber, no matter if you nobody wants you around, and no matter if you get lied to, you are important and impactful with everything, and everybody is there, and you're giving of yourself, no matter who you are. So I talk a lot about, before I get into my next subject, I talk a lot about purpose. And when I go into this conversation and dialogue, people think about, well, I'm designed to do this, I'm designed to do that, I'm supposed to do this, I'm supposed to do that. I abruptly stopped them and said, no, what you're looking at in your mirror is purpose. You were created, you were designed, you are born and bred to be the individual that you are. So the deli worker that you just encountered, that's purpose. He's there for his specific reason. The individual that's sweeping the gym floor, the individual that's the trash at the end of the day at your kid's school, that's purpose. He is giving of himself to make a better environment for society. So I truly agree with you, man. One of the last topics as we start to get ready to wind down, man, is I want to talk about my current series right now, the Process 6. This is entitled "If I Only Knew Then What." And man, that is universal, and it's truly applicable to everyone. And we've all, no doubt, have said this, and most likely still say it from time to time. What scenario in your life, man, comes to mind when you hear that statement of "If I only knew then what I know now"?
I have to pick one, huh? Uh, I think so much of, you know, again, growing up in a household where there was a lot of machismo, a lot of macho, we're all jocks, we're all playing sports, we're all doing that kind of thing. And, we're tough and that's great, and I don't mind being tough. I still think to a lot of degree that I am, but I think the importance of learning the opposite, of learning to be gentle. And I am a big man. I'm 6'8". When I started with cancer, I was 240 pounds, and I'll never forget. I'd had my second surgery, and I had all the lymph nodes in my groin removed, and I had 40 staples in my groin. And I was discharged from the hospital. I was offered pain medication, and I didn't take it. And I got home, and I was able to navigate the few steps from the garage into the kitchen. And then I needed to get up 7 stairs to a landing, and then 7 more stairs to the bedroom. And I got to the landing, and my groin felt like it was on fire. I was in so much pain. And I looked at my wife and daughter, and I said, I got to sit down. I've got to rest. And my daughter knew that if I sat down, they were not going to get me up. So she ended up grabbing me by my lapels, and my wife kind of pushed from the back, and they got me up those 7 final stairs into the bedroom. And I think back on that story, and I think about how, I always ask this question: who in your life are you pushing or pulling towards their goals, towards their dreams, towards their ambitions? Or maybe more importantly, or maybe not, who's pushing you towards your goals, towards your dreams, towards your desires? And that story just kind of encapsulates for me that, I can't do this alone. I can't live my life, no matter how tough, no matter how strong I am. I always talk about my 3 F's: faith, family, and friends. I need God. I need God in my life. I need my family in my life, and I need my friends in my life. And when I learned it's not about me, it's about other people and how I interact with other people, my life changed immeasurably.
Mm-hmm. Leaders truly exemplify greatness among choices over the years. That's legacy. That is truly what a legacy is about. We're about 10 minutes away from closing out here, Terry. So I kind of want to wrap it up with one final question that I want you to think about before you answer for a couple seconds. If you can leave our listeners right now with one word, what would that word be, and why? Why did you pick that word?
I guess I'd like to leave that, instead of using a word, I'd like to leave you with a story, if I could.
Absolutely.
Okay, here's the story. Always been a big fan of Westerns growing up. My mom and dad used to let me stay up and watch Gunsmoke and Bonanza and Wild Wild West when I was young. 1993, the movie Tombstone came out. Big hit movie, starred Val Kilmer as a man by the name of John Doc Holliday and Kurt Russell as a man by the name of Wyatt Earp. Now, Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp were two living, breathing human beings who walked on the face of the earth. They're not made up characters for the movie. And Doc was called Doc because he was a dentist by trade, but pretty much Doc Holliday was a gunslinger and a card shark. And Wyatt Earp, his entire life, had been a lawman. And these two men from entirely divergent backgrounds come together and form this very close friendship. And at the end of the movie, Doc Holliday is dying at a hospital in Glenwood Springs, Colorado, which is about 3 hours from my house. The real Doc Holliday died at that hospital and is buried in the Glenwood Springs Cemetery. And Wyatt, at this point in his life, is destitute. He has no money. He has no job. He has no prospects for a job. So every day he comes to play cards with his friend, and the two men pass the time that way. And in this scene, they're talking about what they want out of life. And Doc says, I was in love with my cousin when I was young, but she joined a convent over the affair. But she's all that I ever wanted. And then he looks at Wyatt and he says, what about you, Wyatt? What do you want? And Wyatt kind of nonchalantly says, I just want to lead a normal life. And Doc looks at him and says, there's no normal, there's just life. And get on with living yours. Mark, you and I know people out there that are listening to us. They're just kind of hanging back. They're hanging back. It's like, well, when this happens, I'll have a normal life. Or when this happens, I'll have a successful life. Or when this happens, I'll have a significant life. I guess I'd like to leave your listeners with this. Don't wait. Don't wait for life to come to you. Get out there, find the reason, find the purpose, find the why that you were put on the face of this earth, and live that reason. Because if you do, I'm going to promise you two things at the end of your life. One, you're going to be a whole lot happier. And two, you're going to have a whole lot more peace in your heart.
Mm-hmm. Your why is greater than your situation, which is part of your process. That is something that I always say to individuals. Terry, I know that we've ran across information with your ticker. If anybody else wants to reach out to you, get your book, have opportunity, because I believe you do a motivational, weekly motivational conversations or weekly motivational talks. How can they get a hold of you, as well as how can they tune into those, get your book, all the other information with Terry Tucker?
Sure. So the book, Sustainable Excellence, the 10 Principles to Leading Your Uncommon and Extraordinary Life, is pretty much available anywhere you can get a book online. It's available on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, Apple iBooks. So wherever you can get a book online, you can get Sustainable Excellence. In terms of reaching out to me, I have a blog called Motivational Check. Every day I put up a thought for the day, and with that thought comes maybe a question about how you can use that thought in your life. On Mondays, I put up the Monday morning motivational message, which a lot of times is a video or a story. It's a little bit longer, but I understand people's time is at a premium. So I always say, if you need a quick hit of inspiration or motivation, go to motivationalcheck.com. You can also leave me a note there. You can get access to my social media sites. So everything Terry Tucker is at motivationalcheck.com.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Terry. I truly want to thank Terry Tucker for joining me tonight, kicking off the Process Roundtable for 2022. No better way to start this upcoming year. This year that I talked about at the very beginning should be every day. It should be every day that we are appreciating, showing people love. It should be every single day that we're giving thanks for who we are and who we can change. It's every single day that we should be counting our blessings, not only counting our blessings, but enjoying the ride, enjoying the journey of life, enjoying that we have the power to impact people. So Terry, man, I truly appreciate your time and your effort today. Thank you so much, man.
Well, thank you, Mark. And I always say it's good people like you that allow me to come on and hopefully between our discussion, we're going to make a positive difference in somebody's life. And if we do that, for me, today's been a good day.
I have no doubt that's going to happen. No doubt. Thank you, Terry. Thank
you.
Normally I close out every message with the story, But what you heard tonight is something that I hope everyone can draw some strength from. One fact in life is that we all are going to be tested or have the choice to flee or fight, right? I've written the process for just this reason. I want to let you know you've already won the fight. You just heard it. Leaders exemplify greatness among choices over the years. Legacy. Again, please visit my podcast for more in depth revelation of all my acronyms and meanings. Tonight, I truly want you to get out of here with some words that I really want you to think about. I want you to think about a word that begins with a T, and that's tenacity. I want you to think about a word that begins with a P, and that's perseverance. I want you to think about a word that begins with the R, that's resolve. One that begins with the D, that's dedication. One that starts with the F, which is faith, and one that starts with the H, which is hope. All these come together when we stop seeing and truly have a vision. Each of us, all of us, I don't care who you are, this all starts from within. Change truly, truly begins and ends within. Don't forget to have an opportunity to go revisit my podcast, like, subscribe to the Process Roundtable. Again, stay blessed, stay hungry and humble. Don't forget who you are. Don't forget your call to serve. And most importantly, don't forget to share wisdom with individuals who need it. Good night. God bless. And I will see you soon.